$10 was
incoming transmission.
Welcome back, everybody. My name's Murray. I'm your host, and this is Big Book Radio. Hi everybody, it's Murray. It's still freezing cold February. When I recorded with Kate, we sat down and had a good talk for 2 hours, exactly the kind of talk that I had hoped for all along. I'm going to play that now, edit it up. You'll see why it's important to protect people's identities, and we touched on a lot of good things, and I'd like to introduce a new artist on our music break, and then we'll touch on Joe and Charlie, and they are old school instructors of the Big Book. And then there'll be some more of Kate and I talking about the Big Book and the program in general, just to kind of give you the lay of the land and sort of set the scene for coming up episodes. So thanks for coming back, episode 3. That makes you a trooper. I really appreciate it, and I'm hoping you're getting as much out of this as I am. So stay tuned, and I'll see you after the break.
Well, I got sober, and then I got involved in a relationship.
Right. Yeah.
And that relationship became my new addiction.
Right.
And because reality is, I put down the drink.
Yeah.
And I picked up. And that was
How close together was it? Like
I was 14 months sober when I met.
When you met him, so it's
Within
looking back, you got to say that's when it happened, probably.
Oh, I know exactly what happened. I put the plug in the jug in terms of relationships because somebody told me that's what I should do. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as
2 months after the year.
As soon as my year was up, I moved to Toronto.
Right, yeah.
I moved. So I might have been when I met April, I got sober in November. So maybe 18 months or 16 months or whatever I met. But it was essentially, I'm a year sober now. Who'll do? Yeah. Right? Like, let's look around.
White knuckle celibacy.
Yeah, it was total white knuckle celibacy. And so
craving single.
So when I dropped and broke that relationship
so now
off,
you're on your own for the first time, really. So.
No, this is what I was telling.
Sorry.
That's okay. This is what I was telling. My first instinct was, who's going to replace him?
Yeah, right.
Right? That was my first instinct. Got to go find somebody else to fill the credit.
Did you notice that, or now you see it now?
Now I see it.
Yeah.
Now you know who I replaced that with.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so that's caused a whole other set of difficulties. What?
He thought he just sees you smiling and laughing, figure she's has a life on a box on a shelf. There's Kate. Kate has a life, and she's a friend.
And it's okay.
Yeah. But then you open this door, and it's like,
Now, guess what, buddy? I'm as codependent as the next girl.
Yeah.
And the thing was that the last 5 years, my addiction came out in codependency. Mm-hmm. So I've been working on that.
It's a hard one, eh?
It is a hard one, especially since our society feeds on it.
Yeah. Oh, raise the self-esteem and
And you're supposed to be partnered off, and you're supposed to be intertwined, and you're supposed to do, right? Yeah. So it took a lot to learn what a healthy relationship was.
It's hard to tell the difference between a fully involved relationship and a freaking hostage situation. It really is.
And my thing with that was the reason I justified leaving finally was, I need to do my work. Are you willing to do yours? Yeah. No? You're not? Okay, I'm out then. Because we can't be in a relationship if only one of us is doing the work. Right? Like,
if you both need to. Is there any human who doesn't need to do work?
That's my point.
This is where we're coming with my whole idea about the Big Book, too.
Exactly.
It all leads eventually, like we said in other times, to the top where it's that Maslow's triad.
Hierarchy of needs, which I just found today.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a copy of it.
My cousin reminded me of that, a different cousin.
Yeah.
She's like, it's the highest level, food and clothing, and after that, relationships, and after that, you want to give back, right?
Well, and the reality is, like you said, everybody has work to do. Everybody.
That's why we're here. I mean, that's why you're even human, right? The assumption is.
Yeah, the self-actualization.
Yeah.
The problem-solving. Acceptance. Yeah.
That's very old. I don't even know. Is that Freudian? Like, that's very early.
That's Maslow.
Oh, of course. Maslow's triangle. Who would it be? Watson? I don't know.
Franklin? I don't know. Some guy named Maslow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I am. Yeah, so that, looking at our friend yesterday and just saying, so just so you know, you
Yeah.
might be codependent, eh?
Yeah. Well, didn't
What?
He just had, without going to a third party.
Yeah.
I hear so.
Well, the drag is that sometimes when people come to AA, I've heard people say, you put the plug in the jug and just go to meetings, right? You go to meetings and you'll be fine. Well, personally, that's bullshit.
Yeah, it says right in there.
Yeah. And as soon as
If you want what we had, you better do what we did.
right, and going to meetings isn't the solution.
Going to a meeting doesn't make you sober any more than sitting in a church makes you a Catholic. There's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Sitting in the building on a pew, I go to that every week and I sit there.
For that specific amount of time.
And I'm saved. I'm like, oh, wait a
Ow.
minute.
That's what I always think. I always just think, ow.
It's going to be such a shock.
Yeah.
Back to the back of the line.
So,
Oh, anyway. I want to lay down a basic premise of the book does this, it doesn't do that. Here's the process, and this is what you
Here's an
expect it to
example.
look like. Yeah,
Right.
and here's, the steps. This is, and then the level that I took it to with the booking and the way other people do it, other one-on-ones and stuff.
Right.
But then we're done, because the recovery is one aspect of the big book.
right.
How to live sanely is
another
is
one.
the main point, right? And then there's so many other things. Like again,
Right, because there's the history that you want to dig
Yeah.
into, and then the connection with other spiritual.
We like to say where I hang out that the mind is a dangerous neighborhood. You better not go there alone. And if I was rock climbing, Kate would be the person, my partner, to help me get through the climb. She's with me on this as my co-host and also as the watch. She's watching me for a flared up ego, and she challenged me on my anonymity, and I really appreciate her for that. And I took a look at my technical aspect. I had placed my first episodes of Big Book Radio on my personal YouTube, and since then I've taken them down and reposted them under Big Book Radio, which is still mine, but it's anonymous. You'd have to have some kind of court order to figure out who I was. So it's not a challenge to discover who I am. If you message me on Big Book Radio, the group site now, I'll be happy to tell you who I am, depending on whether I decide you're a creep or not. I have no compunctions about blocking people who are, just trying to troll me. And we're here to help each other. If you don't want to help, thanks for coming out, and try again next time.
I don't know, whatever. You don't want to get cocky, but I haven't had a drink for 18 years, and if I take one tomorrow, it'll be the biggest change of my routine ever. It would, there's going to be some big, wide symbols or signs here.
Signs beforehand.
And that's why you're here, and that's why
Yeah.
Martha's here, and that's why my wife's
And
sitting
that's
right
why
there
I'm
going,
like yeah.
And I'm glad
Be careful. Tread lightly. Well, and that's it.
but if that's what it takes to get this done and out there,
Yeah.
fuck it, whatever. I don't know. That's my
Yeah.
honest feeling about it.
Oh,
I have no intention of getting sick over it.
right.
But having said that, I totally don't want to commit to things because, okay, let's go there. Addiction to me is an aspect of OCD. I definitely
Right.
have OCD.
Right.
I should be on medication for it, but I won't take it
Right.
because I don't want it. I
Right.
just don't want it.
Right.
And I hate getting committed to things because once I'm committed to things, that's it. That's on,
Right.
right? And I really played games with myself about this, but
Right.
it's on.
Right.
So let's see what happens at the other end.
Right.
Let's get this out of my system and see how I am at the end.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
all I can say. As far as safety aspect, I work professionally in dangerous places, and safety is the first thing on my mind. If I'm being blind to that, I appreciate you letting me know.
Yeah.
And we've said that, and
Yeah.
now we can all go, look, we told them.
But you can tell people stuff. It's not until they come.
Yeah.
People come to that.
I feel confident. Believe me, I've been
Yeah.
down this, and,
Yeah.
and I want to try it. I don't know what Ruth wants to do, but I don't want to ask her to change her because she's not a member. She's just offering to put stuff on for me.
That's right, but there are
It's up to me.
alternatives, right? Like there are alternatives such as posting it as an MP3, not linked to the YouTube.
Yeah. Need a little more work on that.
Yeah, and I haven't used recording programs or applications at all. So when you asked me if I'd be interested in doing one, my instinct was absolutely, but I'm going to have to play with the recording stuff because I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I can figure it out because if you know computers, you can usually figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
fairly.
Well, there's a free one for Skype that I found. That you
Oh,
can just
yeah?
record right on Skype. Like if you can get Skype up, we don't have to worry about timing. You
Yeah.
just click on record
Yeah.
and shut it off again. But again, my original nose says it's the person-to-person stuff where the good part is.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
that meeting when we had with everybody was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And just you and I, that other was good.
Just hard to get everybody together? Is that what's happening?
Well, I mean, Chris has his son on opposite weekend,
Right.
and you have your kids.
Oh,
I just proved
right.
it to myself because he's down there with his kids. I
Kid
was
today.
pretty sure
Yeah.
you and him are going, no, I don't know. And,
Yeah.
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 But
But on a, yeah. But then Martha.
Martha's ready to go on a
Yeah.
one-to-one whenever we can
Right.
figure it out. Last weekend I called her and we
It
both
didn't work.
missed each other.
Right.
So, and I knew we were going to get together, so I left that alone for now.
Right.
But I'll come back to that. And if I can get Annie on, she moves so fast that if I can get her to sit still for 20 minutes, half an hour, it'd be good.
Right.
Because she's awesome. She's hardcore AA.
Yeah.
Really, really. I was so glad to see her on the site when this site got looking and I'm listening to the people. You get to know how kind of what they're like,
Right.
what they're
Yeah,
into.
yeah.
And it's airy fairy and unicorn farts. And along comes somebody. I said about me being an AA, and somebody said, "Well, you want to meet Annie?"
Right.
And then right away I felt a little better. I smelled it.
Okay, my people. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like, again, the conspiracy theory that no one else talks about that I have about that whole thing is I think we were launched on that guy to shut him down.
Oh, very possible.
In a spiritual kind
Yeah,
of way,
yeah.
the boy was out of control.
Right.
And they brought in not one but two recovered alcoholics.
Right.
And a bunch of women of exactly his type. And he
Right.
got into where he likes to go with all that and got busted big time on it. Big time.
Right.
There ain't anybody on the internet's going to listen to that guy. I'm not saying it was deliberate, but boy, it sure worked out seamlessly.
That's
Like,
good.
Within
Yeah.
2 years, instead of how long could he drag that out? He's out there,
Right.
right? I offered to help him. I didn't mean it, but I offered. He asked me to send him a big book. I sent him a link, and Annie sent him a big book. And so
He's got what he needs.
my job is done.
Yeah.
And that's about all I want to say about that. Let me just close the door on it once and for all.
Oh yeah, like the whole ego tripping, the whole process is big books. Not just like getting sober is like going to meetings, right? Regular like accountability,
Right.
All the sort of off-label things that
The
happen.
life
and-
skills?
Yeah, well, the things that happen to you besides just
Getting sober.
the God thing.
Right.
Other things happen to you, like you become a new scenario, like a new. For me, I went from wondering where my next drink was to where's the next meeting, and I
Right.
spent my day
Right.
again
Yes.
obsessed on that,
Right.
right? And these little, I call them ego trips and traps,
Oh.
tips and tricks. That's what it was, ego tricking. You know, like 90 meetings in 90 days, and pretty soon. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
saying you have to do that, but I understand what they're
The goal
getting
for
at.
that.
Yeah.
So all those kind of, like, I had a guy, I was so mad. I think I was 6 months sober or 3 months sober, and I picked up my chip at my home group. And I would walk 20 minutes, half an hour to that meeting every Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, Don, would drive by me and wave.
Keep going.
Every week,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I would see him at the meeting, and he'd be there setting up. He'd always be there early, right? And the next, after, I think it must have been my 3-month chip, because the next week that I saw him, instead of waving, he pulled over
Oh, nice.
and picked me
You
up.
wanted to see if you were worth it.
And it was wanted to see if I was willing to do the work. And it was one of those
Yeah, that's
things
good.
that he did because he'd been around forever and a day, right? And he was just, you know, I remember being early in recovery and you see a newbie and you're ready to go and you want to help him, and it was his way of keeping himself safe because he
was
didn't,
doing,
right? It was his, let's see if she's really willing first before I go out of my way.
he was doing triage.
Yeah,
He might not have called it that, but that's
Right.
what I call it. He
Right.
says some we don't have to help, some we can help.
right,
We got to figure out who's who.
right.
'Cause
And
why waste my time on a dead man or somebody who doesn't need it?
right, or somebody who's not willing to do their part.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like, because there are some people who, yeah, you know, they're desperately in need of it, but aren't willing to do the work for it.
That's where the how. That was a
That
How
honesty,
stands for.
right?
Go ahead.
Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I honestly knew I had a problem, but I wasn't open to doing anything about it.
Or
That's the
willing
end
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the story. As far
Right.
as me as a person able to help someone,
Right.
you don't want my help. Well,
See ya. Give me a call when you do.
this guy does. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turned away 2 guys, 3 guys maybe.
Yeah.
You know, and now I'm working with you. You can't do it. You know?
No. And that was, I remember him.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I also remember hearing about this woman in Toronto, and this is just off of kind of a rabbit hole story, and the little old lady who couldn't get to meetings anymore. And she might, because there's urban AA legends, right?
Yeah, let's
And
get them on
I
tape.
love the urban AA legends, because you never know if they're true.
They
So
had
if
to be true
anybody
once, right?
finds out if this was true. So apparently there was this little old lady who couldn't get to meetings anymore, and she would call newcomers
Yeah.
and say, I've lost my lighter, will you bring me over a lighter?
Oh,
Right?
just so they take her to a meeting?
No,
Oh.
because she smoked, she couldn't get to a meeting.
Oh, yeah, I get
So
it.
she would call and say, oh man, or they would call in a tizzy about something, and she would say, hey, you know what, I need a lighter, I can't find mine.
Yeah.
And they would go get her a lighter and go over and end up sitting there for hours.
There's a tip and trick, right?
Right?
She gave him something to
To
do.
do. They showed up. When she died, she had a drawer full of lighters.
Really?
Yeah, like a fucking full-on drawer
Oh,
of
we
lighters.
gotta look into that one.
Because it wasn't about the lighter, it was about giving them something to do
That's true.
and making them come and be
Yeah.
a part and just get out. Just get
Well,
out of the
her-
house, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like-
and her recovered, she knew she needed contacts, so
Right.
she created her own. Right?
Yeah.
She had people come.
Yeah. She needed contact, so she needed her own. Plus, and not telling them that secret, right? Not telling them that
Yeah.
this was the reason.
Because
right?
then when you find it out, your ego takes another hit. 'cause,
Yeah.
oh, Jesus, she's been playing
She
all
tricked
this
me.
thing. And because who's smarter than me, right?
Right.
I'm the smartest guy I ever met.
Yeah.
So I got around you fucking people. I have to say also, one thing I like saying, I've said it, is it's hard to be a black sheep in a room full of black sheep, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm used to being the smart one, the wise guy, I get away with stuff, the
Yeah.
comment. I walk in that room, I blush.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, man, I've done okay, but some of these people are fucking sick.
Yeah, or the other one you hear all the time. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. Like, go
Exactly.
ahead and try and lie to a fellow AA. They're just going to look at you and go, you're crazy. What are
Yeah.
you even wasting your breath for?
Yeah, it takes
Really?
Yeah.
Really? You think I'm going to fall for that? The other, what did,
Takes one to know one.
yeah, really.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And you are one.
Yeah. The other thing, and I've done this to you.
Oh.
And I've done it to many people because it's what I was told. Early on, we get told to get involved in a home group, right?
Mhm.
We get involved, we get responsible, you start taking jobs.
Yeah.
Well, I never really understood why it was important for me to take jobs
Yeah.
until I think I was just over 10 years of recovery without a drink. And I was at a work function in Sudbury with work people
Right.
who didn't know I was sober.
Right.
And I was the DD and took them to the bar.
Right.
And I was going through my stuff, and somebody offered me a joint. Somebody
Oh.
said, let's go outside and smoke a joint. And
Yeah.
I went, I won't, because I have a meeting with my sponsor in the morning. I
Yeah.
already had a commitment, and an AA commitment will keep me sober
It
sometimes.
does tend to trump stuff. Yeah.
Right?
for
It
sure.
does. Like, how can you go
Yeah.
get drunk if you know you have to set up an AA meeting the next day? Like, you just...
Yeah. I
It
got a
just is
story
rare.
like that. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. It's very powerful.
It's so
Listen-
basic.
Listen, I get tired of saying, but I'm having trouble with the social aspect. I
Right,
really am,
right, yeah.
and I'm aware of it, and it's cool, and
Yeah.
I'm making an effort. But I really like to keep to myself. But having that social, it's not an obligation. It's just like a pressure, or
Right.
just a structure.
Yeah.
Keeps you moving when you
Yeah.
would, and that's not an AA thing. That's a human thing, right? Like we hang around in groups for that exact reason. When I'm
Right.
sick, you're well. When I'm broken, you could fix me. But you
Right.
bring wood, I bring water. This is just
Well, my first instinct
But
last
we don't
night when
have
you
that.
gave that offer of canceling today, I'm like, yep, I'll cancel.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, I don't need to cancel. That doesn't make me better. Being
Right.
alone doesn't make me better all the time. It does sometimes,
Yeah.
because it's nice to have the quiet. But especially when I first got sober, being alone was not a good idea, right? Like,
dangerous.
it is, but I think as we get around longer, we're better at identifying our needs.
Well, if
Right?
being alone and really panicky about it is a sign of insanity, isn't being okay alone and a desire to be alone a sign of sanity? Wouldn't
Exactly.
that-
I would agree.
As long as it's not instead of.
Or avoidance of,
Yeah.
right? Like, because I can sometimes tend to do the alone thing so you don't really see who I am,
Yeah.
right? So that I can only present my good side,
Yeah.
right? So, because that's what I used to use it for, right? Because if
Oh,
I'm not
you
my
and about half the
110%,
people.
then you're not seeing me.
Yeah. You
Right.
and half the people around here, like in our world anyway, you know, put a good face on it, the British Empire, right? Stiff
Right.
upper lip, you know,
Right.
never let them see you
Yeah.
sweat, all
Yeah,
that, you know.
exactly.
I mean, that kills people in the thousands because my dad would rather die than go to any meeting. And he did.
Right.
He did.
Right.
And, you know, he didn't ever, it was meant more to him to be known as a guy with a weakness
Right.
than a guy who had to go to AA.
Oh,
He was
isn't that
so
interesting?
bad he'd rather go to AA. He never
That's
expressed
pride?
that in
Yeah.
word. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
terminal pride.
Right.
But it wasn't that he decided to go to the store and go buy some pride. That shit was putting him from first day, day one,
Yeah.
you're a or whatever.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And I use it today.
Oh, yeah.
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 But in some cases, right, it causes so much
It can
trouble.
kill us.
It can kill us.
And that's what I
And
find.
not every person, just the ones like us with this weirdness.
Well, pride can kill us, right? Our ego can kill us.
Well, there's a real recognition. It's easy for me to spot it in the big book because there's a part where I write in, and we're doing the fourth step, and I write in the 7 deadly sins.
Oh, right.
But that is an obvious common point we have with whatever book of the Bible or scripture that comes from.
Yeah, yeah.
The 7 deadly sins is very old. They didn't make it up 2,000 years ago.
No.
I'll tell you that. It went
No.
way back. So
Yeah.
we're tied in that one. Speaking of old history.
Yeah. Well, pride, what are the, let me remind myself. Pride, envy, lust, right? Greed.
jealousy.
Lust and greed aren't the same thing?
No.
They're four different.
Maybe for some people.
Sorry, because I was making the association pretty quick. Pride, gluttony, lust, greed,
What do you have?
sloth.
Sloth,
There's two more.
anger, jealousy. Did you say-
Anger and jealousy.
Which, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I wrote it in when I was doing the booking because Don gave it to me, but you can easily see he's not wrong. Right?
No,
It's just calling a spade a spade.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Bill, we know, like to use different words for meaning the same thing.
Right. And the 12 and 12 has it all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's funny, the first time I went through the big book, I used the 12 and 12 as a companion. Now I don't even touch it.
It's just one of those things they try. It's like living sober. Oops.
Yeah.
Nice try, thanks.
Yeah.
Chris Raymer can say nothing good about that book.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like it's full of things to do
Opinions.
other than
The big book.
the book.
That's true.
You know,
That's exactly
which
what it is.
it was probably designed to say, okay, here's what you got to do, and this might help.
Right,
My guess
right,
is some old
right.
guy that Bill saved or
Uh-huh.
Bob taught somebody, and then they said, well, you know, we should have all the little tips and tricks.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Isn't
And now
that
it's
exactly
held
what
up
living
as
sober?
a it's held up as a textbook, right?
Yeah, but it's really tips and tricks. It's like it's a extra. Yeah, it's handy to have, right? Because when it even talks about it in the big book, that idea that they might, when we're new, that time to detox, right, before you get into the hard work of the big book.
Well, it says have a candy when when you're feeling the urge to drink.
Yeah,
have a
have
candy.
sugar.
Yeah.
What?
I'm sorry, but I mean that can activate the allergy with people that have severe carbohydrate
I see
allergies
what
like
you're
sugar, gluten,
Right.
and alcohol. They're all the same damn thing.
Right.
You know, you've heard me smirk sometimes when they're giving out cake and say, "Yeah, I go to Gamblers Anonymous, I can have vodka." Like
Yeah.
you play it right, eh? Like you can get everything you want, just go to the right meeting, right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm an overeater, I can go to an AA meeting and have all the cake and fucking cheese and the crackers I want.
But
But is that on me?
This is
course
well.
it is.
That's because it was funny because I was talking to my friend Kira this morning, and she's coming up on 10 years, and she was talking to me about her food stuff a little bit, and that some of her issues are coming out in physical form, and I was like, okay, so let's be clear here. We're not drinking. And when we're new, that just might be the best thing we can do. Right? Like when we first get here, I was talking, this is so funny. It's that harm reduction model that AA doesn't talk about because we're abstaining. Absolutely. We're 100% abstinence around alcohol. But tell me that we don't use other things. right?
Right.
We do.
Yes.
And I expect it of people, right?
Well, yeah.
And I used to be one of those hardcore people that said, if you're using pot, then you shouldn't be in the rooms in AA.
Yeah.
Well, then I took a look at my own story and realized that I quit pot first because that was the one that I chose to put down first. And then my drinking went through the roof.
Yeah.
If it had been reversed and I had decided to put down drinking first,
Right.
my pot or drug consumption would have escalated. And then I would have had to drew that.
But you had to blow off the weaker one in terms of the stronger one. Use the
Exactly.
higher power against the lower power.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So for me, pot was the lesser. Like it was easier for me to put
For
that
me, it
away.
was tobacco. Honestly, I gave up tobacco. I don't know when I gave it. I just didn't.
Right. And so for me, alcohol was next.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But now my cigarettes and caffeine consumption are still huge.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to pretend I'm not using something.
Right.
Right? And it's okay.
But you're better off.
I'm way better off than I
Socially,
was.
physically, you're not in danger of getting whatever
That's
done
right.
to you or happen to you or die from or
That's
you
right.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
And so talking to my friend this morning, it was like, okay, yeah, so food's your issue now.
Now, that's
Now.
what I'd like to hear because
Now
okay.
the food is the thing. So do something about it now.
Right.
But you don't have to beat yourself up about it.
Right.
Because for alcohol, it's not killing you anymore. So now you have the ability to take care of whatever's next on your list.
Right. Well, that's my little story from that idea is if a guy comes into an AA meeting and he's got a pistol in his mouth, I don't want to talk to him about his drinking.
No, I
Or
want to get the
big
pistol out of
I
his
want
mouth.
to take the damn gun away from the guy because it's
Yeah.
just right. And if
Yeah.
somebody comes in, alcoholic, drug addict, and they smoke and do whatever
Right.
they do,
Yeah.
right? We start with what's killing you first. Basically, you don't have to ask on that one. It's my argument, my problem with not living sober, but that philosophy says, oh well, it says in there, eat sugar. It says early on,
Right.
and you're sitting next to a guy. I sat next to a guy in the treatment center that was the manager of the program. He must weigh almost 400 pounds.
I know.
And he was happy because today I'm sober.
Good for you.
I bet he's alive.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah.
I'm alive. I bet he's had at least one heart attack. You
Yeah.
know, like I mean,
But
I-
and some
it wasn't
people don't
against
get
him.
to the other stuff,
no,
though.
I know. I get that. It's
Yeah.
not that. It wasn't about him. It was about me going. Well, do I want to go to the lengths he's going to end up like him?
Right.
Fuck no.
Right.
And that was probably the first conscious thought I had about obsessive eating. I'd never really thought about it. I went up there, I bought a specially large 3X coat for that trip because I knew it was Elliott Lake. It was so
Right,
cold.
yeah.
It was 3X. It was a fucking tent I had on me. Right? I weighed 300 and some pounds. I
Right.
wasn't looking down my nose at the guy. I would
Yeah.
say, whoa, I don't want to do that. Right.
Right.
And
it's so-
you've actually answered that problem I have, though, because we do with the worst thing first and go down from there, right?
That's right.
And it never ends.
And some people don't move past the alcohol.
Yeah, I know.
And those are the people I don't want what they have.
Well, those are the people who give out the most advice. Aren't the sickest ones the ones that help you the most?
That's right.
That makes you really worried about
Well, let's
me.
put help into quotation
Well,
marks.
yeah, they have the most to say,
right.
right?
Yeah.
The most free advice.
Yeah.
Rubber rooms and taking fun pills, filling up on notes and dollar bills. It's the price you pay for feeling okay. You're the strangest girl I've ever met, sending weird signals to my head. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. Spending more and more time up in bed, thinking about the things I think you said. fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. I swear it's not so hard to understand. I just wanna get in the sun again, the sun again, the sun again, the sun again. I swear it's not so hard to understand. I just wanna get in the sun again, the sun again, the sun again, the sun again.
Wow, I really like the new music that they can get on these websites where they want to be seen and known. That guy's name goes on the internet as Brad Sucks, and the song, of course, Fixing My Brain. There's so many artists out there crowdsourcing their music, and I'm glad to help them, and it's beautiful stuff to have with me, and I'm a very symbolic person. I like to speak through symbols, words, sounds, music, and thanks for listening, and let's have more of me and Kate talking on a Sunday afternoon.
When I'm sitting with people, those who don't acknowledge that they have a next thing on their list,
Yeah.
I don't want what they have.
They're cured, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, I am cured of alcoholism for today, but tell me that I don't still have
Yeah.
fears and anxieties, and that's what the steps are there to
Yeah.
do, right? They work with everything.
10, 11, 12 are very, very clear,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
What else is wrong with you? More will
Yeah.
be revealed,
Yeah.
right? And expect that.
Yeah.
Well, this gets into, okay, I want to bring in, this is whole other, off the wall, but
Yeah.
related.
Oh, big surprise. Murray's off the wall.
Rabbit hole alert, rabbit. Okay, Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
right? Mr. Rogan,
Yeah.
I like him a lot. He's not an alcoholic. If he is, I'm sure he's read the big book. Not because he ever said it, but just because his open-mindedness. I know he
Right.
has. His friends are definitely getting better.
Right.
But it's not about that. He's just some guy, right?
Right.
And some of what he says in his clips sounds so much like I wish I had said that I want to use some of what he says and just say, look, this isn't from an AA guy, but
Right.
that's what I would say if I'd said it first,
Right,
right?
right.
And one of the things he likes to say that it says if you're addicted to alcohol, it's because alcohol got there first. You would have been addicted to cheeseburgers, meth, your neighbor's dog, whatever. It got there first.
It was
That's-
the thing that did
'cause
what
it's-
you needed it to do
That's
first.
right, because it's
Yeah.
an external circumstance. Okay,
That's right.
that's him saying that. Right?
Yeah.
Now we look at that and we go, yes, because an external circumstance is not your problem.
No.
The condition inside me, that's the problem.
Say that again?
The external circumstance isn't my problem. It's the condition inside of me
That's right.
that causes
That's
problems.
right. And the alcohol is our, what's the word?
Off switch.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Shuts
the
it off,
opposite. Yeah.
yeah.
I was thinking of the sedate, right? It sedates it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, well, yeah.
Like it takes care of that condition that's internal.
Makes it livable.
Yeah, and so for some people it's meth.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that did it for them. Or it was relationships, or it was food, or smoking.
Or whatever the substance is. And the same with, well,
Yeah.
why did you start drinking? And well, she said this, he said that, the tree fell, the whippersnapper broke, whatever.
It
Again,
was sunny out.
as soon
What?
as I hear that from somebody, I go,
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah,
You're hiding, you're blind. One of the two.
right.
Right? The other thing
Denial
the
or
other thing he
blind.
likes to say, well, it wasn't him, but he quotes somebody who said, not only do you not want a drug-free America or a drug-free world,
Right.
there's never been one. There's never
Never.
been a
No.
drug-free society. There's never been a group of humans who haven't used something,
Something.
to alter their state.
Always.
Because why wouldn't you? Everything's trying to eat you.
Yeah.
Evolutionarily, right? Like
Right.
for me, it's easy because I keep getting reminded. Don't forget who you're talking to. I'm not meaning you,
No,
but
I know.
but
The audience,
the
yeah.
people out there. It's not hard for me to wrap my head around evolution as a word in the sense that things change over time.
Right.
Right. And at one time, this kind of a human that I'm sitting in right now was a long time ago, and it was entirely different because
Right.
we didn't know about sharp sticks, we didn't know
Right.
about fire, we didn't, you know,
Right.
it was terrifying. And if you found mushrooms or a plant you could eat or fermented grapes that
Yeah.
you slept good and you woke up, that was evolutionarily successful for you because you were more full energy, did better with the food and better with the ladies, probably.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It
yeah,
makes
yeah.
perfect
There was
sense.
a positive effect
Result,
to it.
yeah. And but the trouble is, then you take it, and you refine it. Time goes by, and people being people, they take advantage. And how does that happen? The Bible gets on about original sin and greed and sloth and envy and all that, right? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But here we are. Human
Yeah.
nature is human nature,
Yeah. Yeah.
and some of us just fall off the edge of the table, and our human nature is just so. I'd like to say broken, but I think mine's just not there. The early training that is natural for a person to get.
Like what? Give an example.
Don't drink too much. Don't steal a lot of the stuff that ended up in addictive behavior, insecurities, obsessive behavior, that kind of thing.
So basic human nature, when you say that,
I'm not trying to solve the nature nurture thing. I'm
Right.
just saying I feel more like it was. We say we're broken, but I just don't think I was installed correctly.
you don't
as
know
a
that there was
program.
anything to break in the beginning.
I
That it was
just think it
yeah,
was
from
just-
the beginning it wasn't put together properly.
Yeah, like all the parts are there, it just
Right.
didn't go in right. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I've got
I see what you're
character, I've got, intelligence,
Yeah.
I got what I need to get through the day, but it just went
Yeah.
off the rails somehow.
Right.
Right? Like-
yeah. Yeah, that it's funny. Did you read the article on Facebook that I posted about the research that they have now for the cause of addiction?
I think I saw
And
that,
did you?
yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
the comment that the cause of addiction really is connection or lack of connection
Yeah.
with other humans.
Yeah.
So when you talk about that, when you talk about feeling like you weren't put together properly or whatever,
Disconnected feeling.
that's completely agree with that research that the reason people seek that off switch is because they're lacking that connection, right? Because that connection doesn't exist for
You
whatever
don't even
reason.
know it exists in a lot of cases.
Right, like for
Like-
whatever reason, not because my mommy didn't love me enough or whatever. Like,
Right.
who knows whether it was the nurture or nature.
Again, that would be an outside circumstance,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
This is just a model that kind of I'm working with.
yeah,
It's up for debate, obviously.
yeah. But yeah, I still have never listened to Joe. Yeah,
Pardon me? Joe
Rogan.
Oh, I
yeah.
just love, I mean,
I haven't
again,
listened to him.
I listened to him for 3 hours and I was like, okay, I'll do another one tomorrow or later today. And people,
yeah.
I put up 2-hour shows, they're like, are you fucking nuts? Do you know how long that is?
Yeah.
Sorry, man. I do the work. I can't help. I can't
Yeah.
not do it. I love it. I
Right.
love listening to shit, right?
Right.
He's good. He's Oprah.
Yeah.
He's
He's
Oprah.
what?
He's Oprah for guys.
Oh, cool.
Quote me on
Good.
that. Quote me on that.
You will quote yourself,
I
apparently.
just did. I have several times. I'm like, well, this isn't. I was trying. Okay, here's something. I brought up something when we were typing, and it got confusing because texting being the way it is
Yeah.
about traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress
Yes.
and addiction, whether it's
Yes.
as a result of or
Right.
comes from that.
Right.
Because, well, I'm ready to come out and say I've had 4 traumatic brain injuries,
Okay.
like damage.
Right.
Would have concussion is a brain injury. People,
Right.
oh, well,
Yes.
he
You
had
fall
a
down,
con-
you bonk your head.
Yeah.
That can be a brain injury.
that adds
Absolutely.
up, right?
Yeah.
And I had some good ones.
Yeah.
And there's some I'm not even sure. Maybe I might have had because when you spend a lot of your life in blackout, you don't know
Yes.
when you. I used
You
to wake
you
up
don't
sore
know.
and didn't
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
there's some good ones. 2 of them are
Right.
medically recorded.
Right.
And then, if you're living an addiction lifestyle, there's
Yes.
nothing post-traumatic about your stress. You're right in the fucking stress.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
traumatic stress, trying to do what you got to do
To survive,
to
absolutely.
do it.
Yeah.
Because you know what your body feels like. You
Yeah.
know what you have to do out there. It's terrifying.
Right.
And that alone is enough to mean soldiers get that. I did firefighting.
Yeah.
It was
yeah.
some bad days,
Right.
And that ruled me for a long time. Like
Mhm.
that really was. It's kind of mostly gone now, but there's I identify with soldiers, and
Right.
EMS people, and police.
Right, of
And
course.
you've seen I'm on Military
Yeah,
Minds,
yeah, yeah.
and I want to feel that I would like people like that to feel they could come here and listen to that too.
Oh, I see what you're
It's
saying.
particularly not because they're drunks,
Right.
not because they're addicts, or
But you
were.
believe the steps could assist them
Yes.
in getting well.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff coming out. I mean, I got a military.
That's
background.
it's common now. Eh? It's
Oh,
common knowledge now that brain injury is a result of or an effect of addiction, right? Like that there is a connection.
Well, either way.
Yeah, exactly. Both
Yeah.
ways. That's what I mean.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I hadn't
Yeah,
thought, I
it's
hadn't thought
very,
of it
very.
that way.
It's yeah.
Because having the addiction gives you a brain injury.
That's right.
Duh.
Or
I had looked at it that way. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, okay, so when you say PTSD, you think 1,000-mile or 1,000-yard stare, shell shock.
right.
The only people who get it are the guy who was first one off the boat on D-Day.
Not anymore, though. Eh?
No,
Right?
it never was anymore. It
No,
was,
but
it happens
now
to
it's
lots of
common
people.
knowledge that
It happens everywhere.
everywhere and
So-
almost every person in an AA meeting has trauma.
Of course. You
And
wouldn't come there if
therefore-
you didn't have it.
That's right. Therefore, most people are suffering from PTSD
Well, you
who are
said,
in recovery.
pointed it out to me about they get disassociated.
Disassociated.
And
Look around
that's
the
a
room.
symptom, right? Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I catch myself. That's a practice now with mindfulness. Bring that back. That's oh, I haven't been here.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so-
you just mentioned it at the beginning of the session today.
Yeah, you
Listening to Joe and Charlie.
Yeah, you
and then
blank
not being
out.
there half the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never would think about that, and then so what I'm trying to say is, in process of this, part of what I'm getting out of this is to claim that I was ashamed to claim post-traumatic stress. Because if you didn't land on D-Day, you were just some fucking weak pussy that couldn't take it.
Oh, right.
Right?
Right.
Any veteran you ever met says, the good men never came home. I'm the asshole that survived. The survival guilt right out the ass. And I've been up to here with that my
That
whole
doesn't
life.
help.
Okay. So I grew up with veterans
Right.
teaching me,
Right.
showing me.
Right.
And if they weren't veterans, they were ready to go and they didn't
Right.
go.
Right.
Which is even worse. Because
Right.
they didn't
Right.
know the reality, but they were fully trained for it. My dad trained to go to Korea and never went.
Oh.
Because my mom said, if you go, I won't be here when you get back.
Mm-hmm.
And so dad said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Pussy wins. Sorry.
Well,
No, but it's true. And he
Sometimes,
says,
yeah.
he told me that once we were drinking, and I said, yeah, well, I'm glad you didn't because I wouldn't likely been here. Well, I'm too smart for that. I said, you got hit by an artery shell first day.
You
Bad
never
luck
would've made
follows
it
you
back.
around. He says,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I thought that. You're ready to go to war and you hadn't included bad luck?
Yeah.
No, but today I feel like I can say, because I got this friend, Jake,
Yeah.
he's from Buffalo and he's a veteran and
Right.
and we get along, we're buddies, right?
Right.
And he's really kind of accepted me, and it's like, now he's a hero for me because, I mean, he was wounded, he was drafted, he was wounded, he came home, and now he serves the same people, theoretically. The guy that drafted him could be under his care.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and I don't feel ashamed about that anymore. So, you know, and I'm applying this to that now to come out of the
Right.
woods because I don't want to be crazy. And, you know, and I notice other people aren't affected by world events like what we see around here. I mean, people are like, oh, they're doing this and doing that, and I'm going, well, that's not as bad as you think, but this over here is a lot fucking scarier.
Right.
And every year when forest fires start, I want to run off and join the circus. I was
Right.
talking to my boss about that. He's saying about how my job wasn't as bad as some of them I did. I said, yeah. I said, I don't miss, I don't miss tar and feather where all I did was work work hard in the foundation is construction. So I don't miss a day in that, but every spring I want to run off and join the circus.
Right.
I want to do that because it's romantic. It is such a freaking double-edged sword because it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it's the most glorious thing you'll ever do. People are glad to see you. They're glad to see me. When
Right.
we came, if there was any humans around, we were glad we were received well. It's not being a cop or, you know. So there's a lot of that, you know.
They were saviors.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can help. We can save you. We can,
Yeah.
and, you know. And then you get out here, and now I'm out here, and I can't help, and I can't save, and I have to learn triage, and I have to learn to keep myself safe. I have to play safe. So that's a whole. You may not have seen that coming, but there it is, right?
Yeah.
And there's tons of people. There's so many veterans out there. So many kids that are experiencing it and can benefit from this process.
Right. But and you're thinking that the 12 steps can help them go through that process?
Why wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right? These are the kind. I'm just trying to
Well,
open
what's their
people.
addiction?
Adrenaline mostly.
Right.
The survivor guilt.
Right.
Right. I'm not sure they have addictions. I'm sure most of them don't.
Right. So
But-
what are they powerless over? Which is step one, right?
Probably those race on emotions that kick in so fast. It's
Right.
just instant life-saving reactions.
Right. They're powerless
Out
over
of
their
circumstance?
emotions.
Yeah,
Right.
literally. Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to speak for anybody else. I just know I had unexplainable anger for so long. Just
Yeah.
flash, boom, unexplainable. And it would take forever to go on. Now I still get anger. It's more explainable and it leaves quicker.
Right,
You know what
yeah,
I mean? It
you
doesn't
can
take 3
identify
months.
it.
It takes 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And,
It doesn't consume you fully,
No. When I'm in it, it consumes me just as fully
but just for a shorter
for a
period.
shorter period of time.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
Well, maybe not just as fully either. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you can be in the middle of crazy, know you're in the middle of it,
Yeah.
still do it,
Yeah.
and know it's going to end.
Absolutely.
There's an
That's how I
there's
expect.
levels
That's
of
how I
awareness.
express the 6 and 7.
Yeah.
That's how I share about 6 and 7, because step 7 is, oh shoot, just lost it.
Oh, that's when you turn it over.
Right, yeah,
Take
but it
all of
just-
me, good and bad. And,
Yeah.
No, that's
but
3.
that's 7.
Yeah.
But what's
I gotta-
6? What is
6
6?
is very short and confusing.
Yeah, but I mean the actual statement.
Stand by.
I was so excited to
Okay. I hope it's
find
working.
find a big book that is falling apart. Find an alcoholic who isn't.
That's a good one. That's
Yeah.
about the best free advice, if any, I could give to somebody going to meetings. Anyway, if you go to meetings, look for somebody carrying a book. Right. And if you want to find somebody who knows about the book, carry a book yourself. And
Oh,
just find it.
yeah.
I get one of those tricks and tips.
Right.
Okay.
But I thought about this last night at the big book meeting. When I got sober, somebody new come to a meeting. The first thing we did was we bought them a big book.
Used to be me too. Mine's
But
got.
we don't do that anymore.
Friday don't got big books. I heard now.
What?
I don't know. I haven't
They're
been
just
going,
out?
So they just ran.
They just ran out. Because
Hard
I
to
just saw a
keep 'em in.
good new girl last night, and I was like, why didn't I buy her a big book? I was on my way home, and I went, well, that was stupid,
Yeah.
right? So hopefully I'll see her this weekend.
You know,
I used to
digital-
carry an extra one in my car
Yeah.
so that I could just give it to people.
I don't have one anymore. I did have one.
Mhm.
They got
I've
the
run out.
digital one online too, which isn't the same, but it is nice.
But for our generation, the reality
the
is
searchable
people,
one, I put it up
Yeah.
there. White House one, it's very good.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm gonna go sailing with Gary this year. You know, the little Gary.
Oh, Gary,
Little
Painter Gary.
Yeah. Him
Right.
and I go way back.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, and he's
Yeah.
from Nova Scotia. I know him Gary since I was 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
He's the first guy told me he went to AA. Remember I said that? He seemed to think I needed to know that when I was 18. He thought I was
Just so
I go
you
to
know.
AA and it works pretty good, when I go.
We don't know.
We kept drinking, yeah, so he's a nice guy. Gary
Yeah.
had his days too, man. 30 years, you never even got together for like a year here and there, right?
Right.
That's so long to feel like you're failing at it,
I can't imagine.
But he didn't die, so it's just
No,
weird.
that's. I was sitting in a meeting last night, and
Uh-uh.
there was 2 of us who had long-term sobriety without relapse.
Yeah.
Everybody, all the other 10 people in the room,
Yeah.
were chronic relapsers. Sorry, there was maybe 4 of us,
Right.
but 2 of them I wouldn't want. They were the plug in the jug people who haven't done the steps, right?
It sounds so judgmental when we say that if you don't know the story.
Yeah, sorry, I should.
No, but it's
because it's
true.
not meant with judgment. It just
No.
is meant with actually
No, but
some compassion
The-
and empathy. Like, fuck, I'd blow my head off if I was not drinking and not doing the steps.
no, but what I mean is,
Ugh.
it's picture, and I'm just sitting here picturing an audience. Of,
Yeah.
Let's, for the sake of argument, say Buddhists listening
Yeah.
to Christians talking, and in my mind, I'm a Christian person, brought up in a society that way. In my mind, Buddhists are Buddhists. There's this group of people called Buddhists. Well, if you know anything about them, they have more sects and denominations than there are Christian denominations. So it's the same in AA. There's people that come in the room who are sick and need help. Sick don't need help. Sick don't want help, won't do it. Sick that are
Right.
better.
Right.
There's
There's a whole bunch of different groups
there's
of
a
us.
very range.
Right.
And I went in there thinking, okay, I made it to AA. Like I finally should.
Woo,
Here I
I
am.
win.
That's it. It's over. I just got to cash my chips, right? Jesus, that's where your trouble starts.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. I looked at the camera there at the microphone. I'm thinking, if you people don't go because of what I just said, I'll feel bad.
Yeah.
If what I say keeps you away, you're not that sick.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
I've said it before, I'm going to keep saying it. The mind can only absorb what the ass can stand. So I'm going to play some jumping around music. This is going to be, if you're driving in your car and you get pulled over by the police driving when this is on, tell them it's okay. You're allowed to go fast with this kind of music, at least in this country. If you're sitting in your chair, you can move around, at least get the blood flowing, and then we'll come back after the break and we'll have a little more of Murray and Kate, and then we'll switch over to Joe and Charlie to finish off the session. Okay, it's Traffic de Blues, Bad Luck Soul. They're from France. The first speaker of our second hour is going to be Sandy Beach from Washington, D.C. He's long passed, so his anonymity safe. He used to run a teach-in meeting Saturday mornings there, and I'll let him explain from here what that means and how it's a little different than other meetings. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday morning live group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Sandy Beach, and I'm an alcoholic. How you all doing this morning? We'd like to start off by wishing everybody a Happy New Year, and I'm sure that if you canvass the Washington area of large groups of people, that this audience has fewer hangovers per 100 people than most audiences, so we're getting off to a good start. Those of you with a hangover, better check with your sponsor. If you're new to AA, why we want to extend a very special welcome here. We have this meeting every week, and we hope you'll come back. And this is an absolutely wonderful fellowship, and everybody in here really wants to get to know you. They know exactly how you feel if you're just starting in AA. All those feelings about being frightened and angry, and I don't want to be here, and this doesn't work, and I'm not an alcoholic, whatever, all those feelings that are inside, if you could just put them off to the side and actually come to these meetings and let the people that you meet help you, you're going to find a whole new way of life that you never even dreamed of. This could be the best year you've ever had, bar none. So please, if you're new, stick around. It's customary to start our meetings with our preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We're self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And for those of you that are new, you'll hear this read at just about every meeting you go to, and it's a wonderful little entrance to AA because it's just week after day after month it'll serve as a reminder of exactly what we're doing here this morning and about 250 other AA meetings every day in the Washington, D.C. area. So there's a lot of people doing what we're doing here this morning. And as we say, it won't take you too long to figure out what's going on. What happens is we're able to do something as a group that none of us would be able to do on our own. Somehow that's the miracle of AA, that you take a bunch of people who are out there trying to survive as alcoholics on their own and fail totally. We put them all together in one room and we get success. And that's what happens in AA. Somehow we have the power to help each other in the group stay sober, and when you become part of a group and the group succeeds, then you succeed right along with it. And it's one of the great miracles of this fellowship. Now, we got a couple of announcements to get out of the way. Charlie, you got the first one about this. Thanks, Charlie. If you haven't been here before, well, let me welcome you and point out that this meeting's a little bit different than most of our AA meetings in that it's run in a classroom setting. We have 4 or 5 of these in the Washington, D.C. area where somebody in AA who's got 5 or 10 years will come, and you know ahead of time that they're going to talk the whole time on the steps. And I think all the other groups go through the steps 3 at a time each week and finish all 12 in a month. We did that for about 8 years, and then for variety, we shifted over to our present system of 1 step every week. New Year's Day, coincidentally, we're on step 1. So we're right at the very beginning of this whole program. And on Saturday morning, we go through them 1 at a time, so it takes 12 weeks to get through the 12 steps. Then we have 1 week on our traditions, which are very, very important, and then 2 weeks on the history of AA, and then we start all over again. So today is fun just getting started into this thing. If there's anybody new to AA, why, maybe you'll find this particularly useful. And our first step, which we talk about in our program, simply says that we admitted that we're powerless over alcohol and our lives became unmanageable. And this is the doorway into Alcoholics Anonymous, is through that first step. But before I get to that first step, let me just make some general observations about AA and our steps to sort of start this thing out. Alcoholics Anonymous is now in probably 120 countries with 60 to 70,000 AA groups and 2 million miracles of sobriety, where hopeless alcoholics are now living very happy and productive lives. And so the reason for mentioning all this is that it works. It's not a theory. It's not, when you look at these 12 steps, you don't look at them and go, God, I wonder if this would be any good. You know what I mean? Which is how a lot of us read this stuff. Well, I don't know. That doesn't seem to apply to me. The point is, this has been working for a number of years. AA was started in 1935 with just 2 people, and we talked about that in our history. And now, in this relatively short period of time, there's hardly a town in this country that you will go to that there isn't an AA group. And around here, there's meetings morning, noon, night, midnight meetings, men's meetings, women's meetings, you name it. There's meetings just everywhere that you go. And society has pretty well accepted AA, and it's just a remarkable phenomenon. And so we have the meetings, and we have sponsors, and we have the literature, and we have conventions, and we have retreats, and we have all kinds of activities. But let me tell you something. The heart of Alcoholics Anonymous are the 12 steps. That's the deal. All the rest of it is just the atmosphere, the AA world that we're in that pushes us back to the 12 steps. If there's anything that happens in sobriety, you will find, if you've been around a while, is that we just go to meetings to keep reminding each other what the answer is. Because our own brains are out there during the week making up a new answer, which is how we used to be, and we found the world was too intimidating, and I better move to California, I better leave my family and go get a new one, I better quit this job, I better punch this cop in the nose, and I'm out of here. And those were all the old answers that we come up with, and our brains still think that way sometimes, and so we come here to constantly remind each other, no, this is the answer. In spite of what you think, this is what the answer is. And the answer is these 12 steps. And so when we think about them, if you're new, what do we mean when we say these 12 steps? Well, I like to think about them as a game plan for living. That's what it is. If you just joined some team, they would show you the game plan. This is how it works. And that's what these 12 steps are. And the main thing that happens when you try the 12 steps, one of the greatest, it's like jumping ahead, 15 miles all on the first step. The biggest thing that happens when you try the 12 steps is you stop doing it your way. And that causes an immediate reversal of direction for most of us, and all kinds of wonderful things to happen, because think about it. Most of us don't want to change. We come in here and we have our own plan. No, this is me. This is the real me, and this is how I live, and this is my style. This is how I operate. And you put it together, so it's yours. And our pride doesn't want us to let go of our game plan. When we come to AA, no one goes through the theory of your game plan, but they will be very abrupt about a few things. They'll look at you, and they'll say, as I look at you, I draw the conclusion that your plan for living sucks. That's just sort of my inference as I look at you. Because let's face it, when you arrive here, you're not on a roll. There aren't too many people come into AA on a roll. You know what I mean? Like, wow, my life is so good, I think I'll add AA to it. Put on my resume, show that I'm a humanitarian. People come in here when their ass is on fire. And so you come in here, you're wearing a wristband. Family won't talk to you. Car won't run. Clothes don't fit. you have no friends, you can't stand your job, you're thinking of committing suicide or murder or both, and you want people to follow you. You know what I'm saying? You want to hear my ideas about how to live? No, I don't want to hear your ideas. Well, I want to hear your ideas. So I could end up like you? So what I'm saying is AA is very result-oriented. We don't discuss theory. We simply say, see these 12 steps? We're not going to, there's no theory to discuss here. It's just we're going to tell you how they work and show you how to do them. We're not going to discuss, you know, the logic behind them or prove them in any fashion. We're simply going to do this. We're going to say, now, your plan for living has produced you. So we got to abandon that plan. Okay? That's out. We got to get rid of that. Right? Wouldn't you agree with that? And then you've got to look in the mirror a couple more times and go, okay, now, what we're going to do, we're going to take you to AA meetings all over the place. And at AA meetings, we're going to have drunks stand up, and they're going to talk. And some of them are going to be tall, and some are going to be short. They're going to be old. They're going to be men. They're going to be black. They're going to be white. They're going to be Orientals. They're going to be Hispanic. And they're going to get up and talk. And you're going to get to look at the results of the 12 steps. And then we're going to ask you to just do one thing. Go look in the mirror, look at the results of your plan, and then look at the results of what you see here, and make a decision. Which do you want? And that's what happens. And we have that in our Chapter 5. If you want what we have, and what we have is what you see at the meeting. You see people with happy sobriety who seem confident, who are looking forward to every day, who talk in a way that is appealing to you, who have the sense of humor about life, and you just go, I like that. We don't get up here and go, you know, I'm a big shot, I have this job, and I have this. Screw that. The big shots with jobs commit suicide, and they're alcoholics. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how people feel on the inside. There's no resumes getting into AA. As a matter of fact, if you're new to AA, you're going to find we brag in the other direction. Before you come to AA, you talk about, well, I went to school here, and I am this, and I got money in the bank, and I'm very important. You come in here, and it's like, you were arrested 12 times? I was arrested 13 times. And my drinking took me way down, way further than your drinking took you. So in here, you find people exaggerating in the other direction. That's the strangest thing you've ever seen. Oh, no, I'm much worse than you, you know. Because we noticed at discussion meetings, the guys, well, I've been arrested 12 times. Everybody listens, you know. It sounds like one of those stockbrokers, you know. Well, my broker is Charlie B., and Charlie B. says, oh, it's just the New Year's. We're going to settle down next week, I promise. So what we're saying is, we know it's very difficult to let go of your control of your life. And we're not going to try to analyze it. We're just trying to very humorously go directly to the point that it's stupid to continue the plan you've been using, that you are the result of it. And if you're so happy, write a book. I mean, when we come here, we're miserable. And yet we cling to these old ideas. And so this plan, and it's a spiritual plan. It's not an intellectual plan, so you got to get used to some changes here. And you'll find that there's a lot of paradoxes in a spiritual plan. It is, things don't look the way they really are. You take certain actions and it doesn't look like they would do anything. It doesn't look like it should work. When you study, and you will, in spite of yourself, you will study the 12 steps. You will come up to them, if you're new, skeptically. Well, now what is this? Now they've convinced me I'm an alcoholic and I ought to stick around. Maybe I will do this, and then your intellect will take over and you'll go, okay, I'm going to admit I'm powerless. I'm going to come to believe in a higher power. Yawn. I'm going to make amends to people. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And you're going to go through all the 12 steps, and you're going to conclude that it's not going to really do much of anything, because that's what your brain is going to tell you. Your brain is going to tell you, disregard the information you have by looking at all those happy people in AA. Forget that. You're smarter than that. You can read this, and it just isn't going to work for you. That's what our brain will tell us, because it doesn't look like it should work. I'm going to tell you that ahead of time so that you don't get faked out. AA doesn't look like it should work. It doesn't look like it should work. You explain AA to the social scientists of the country, and they still are very skeptical about it because it doesn't look like it should work. You take a bunch of drunks, you stick them in a basement from 8:30 to 9:30, they talk about resentments, hold hands, say the Lord's Prayer, and go home, and it works? That's it? That's the whole deal? Uh-huh. Except we smoke a lot, too, and drink a lot of coffee. That's what happens there in the work? Yes, it does work. So it doesn't look like it works because it's a spiritual solution. Drinking didn't look like it should work. Did you ever try and analyze drinking? Somebody come up, suppose you were 16 years old, you're afraid to go out on the dance floor. And someone said to you, Fred, come over here. See this glass? Chug-a-lug it. You will know how to dance. Now, if you were sort of the doubting teenager, you would go, what? I drink that and I will know how to dance? What the hell? You smell it? It smells like motor oil. You know what I mean? It's some kind of rot gut whiskey. And you say, it doesn't make sense. I drink that, I know how to dance? No. Prove to me ahead of time that if I drink that, I'll know how to dance. How could you do that? You couldn't. This guy could be 70 years old and never have a drink and still claiming that if he drank it, nothing would happen. Because it's one of these things you can't understand, you have to experience. And the same thing with this program and these steps. They won't make sense till after you do them. And then you'll go, whoa, now I see. Now it is revealed to me what happens. Just like when you poured that whiskey down and you got like Steve Martin, those happy feet. Woo! And you were out there doing the dances people never saw before. But it came to you. In other words, something happened. This alcohol contained the power when it got inside of you to literally transform you and the way you looked at things. And that's why we drank. Alcohol had a very definite parallel to a spiritual program. It was certainly not an intellectual way of life, alcohol. Alcohol was a power, and we relied on it to change us so that the world looked good. The world actually stayed the same when we drank. The world didn't change, but when the way we looked at the world changed, and we liked it. It's like it changed the world into Technicolor. And so drinking was my game plan for living, and it was for most of us alcoholics. What was your plan for living? It wasn't a very complicated one if you're the typical alcoholic. Your plan for living was, step one, get a drink. Right? A problem occurs. You're trying to make a decision. You're tired. You need energy. Whatever it is, what was step one in your plan for living? Go get a drink, and then more will be revealed. You remember that? It's like you didn't really see the whole thing. You just knew if you did certain things, you would come up with the answer, and you would know how to function in life perfectly. And so that was, alcohol was a very sort of a chemically spiritual path, because it just did the same sort of thing that the program does, only much quicker. It was sort of an instant conversion. You just got 3 drinks down, and you became serene. It was a marvelous transformation. And it all takes place in the privacy of your own body and mind. And nobody sees it coming. They see you all uptight, and then 15 minutes later they see, hi, you know, you're buying everybody a drink, and you don't have any money. And you have a day-at-a-time philosophy. Each drink could be merry. Tomorrow we could be dead. Who needs the rent money? It's not due for a week. I may be dead at the end of the month, and I won't owe the rent. You know, it was that wonderful freedom to be stupid. So anyway, there's a marvelous parallel between that. So all of this requires no intellect. That's the point. If you can check your brains at the door when you're beginning this program and simply follow it like you did when you went to kindergarten. You know, you just become like a little child. Because what you're going to be done, if you're new, you're just going to be led out of the darkness by the people who are coming before you. And it's just, that's how it works. The longer people have been in AA, the closer they're getting to this wonderful answer, and they're pulling their pigeons, and they're pulling the next crowd, and we're all just going. And so when you're new, you just stick your hand out, and you get a sponsor, you get a home group, and just allow them to lead you right along. Now, if you did that, you'd have the most wonderful sobriety you can imagine. The problem is our brain and our ego, me being led, that doesn't look good. I got to start interjecting my own thinking into this thing. Besides, at discussion meetings, they want to hear what I have to say because they call on me. And I certainly want to look good when it comes around to my turn. So we're always trying to come up with something intelligent to say at meetings so that people will like us. So they already love you. We don't have to do that. You just have to share from your heart how you're feeling that day. You don't have to come up with the answer to the universe. And so the program is a very simple thing, but I'll guarantee you, you will complicate it. You will complicate it by resisting. That's all that'll happen. You will resist every damn step along the way. And Bill writes about this in our literature. But the first step is the one that we cannot compromise on. The rest of them are things that we work towards, and they are perfect goals that we're trying to achieve. But the first step, we can't screw up on. We cannot fail to do it 100%, and that's what we're going to emphasize for the next 10 or 15 minutes. What does this mean in this first step? When it says we admitted we're powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. It's basically saying my game plan for living has to be thrown out the window. I am going to do a lot of changing here. And you know what you have to change? And this is almost insurmountable when you first come to AA. You have to change your mind. This is, like an alcoholic changing his or her mind. It's like the Queen Elizabeth turning around in the Potomac. You know what I'm talking about? It's like 50 million tugboats are pushing on this end and that end. And finally the alcoholic goes, okay, I'm an alcoholic. You remember the decision that you weren't an alcoholic? No, not an alcoholic. The denial and all of that went on for years. And then finally, at whatever it was, all right, so I am an alcoholic. And have been for 31 years. And that's an amazing transformation. Yesterday you're not an alcoholic, and today you've been one for 31 years. Just think about the mental turnaround on that particular one right there. And well, the rest of sobriety is going to consist of hundreds more of changing our minds. And in the beginning, most of us want to call a press conference. Hi, I'd like to announce to the world, I'm about to change my mind. Like, I've never done this before, and I probably never do it again, so I thought I'd call everyone together. We hold on to our old ideas. You know why? Because you put them together. You're the author of all those old ideas. Even though they suck, you hold on to them. I know they're terrible, but I thought them up. It's that wonderful ego that if you're in jail, that song, if I was still drinking, that would be my theme song. I did it my way. I know I'm in deep shit, but I got here. I mean, there's some value there, right? And it's almost like they're going to write a folk song about me. The ultimate loser. And everybody will go, what a guy, what a guy. Look at that. He's in jail, and he's puking, and he's dying. And he refuses to ask for help. Boy, he's hanging right in there, puking, and, he just went down the toilet. Let's write a song about him. And I sort of have this, as you're going down the toilet, you sort of imagine everybody just going, what a guy, wow, what a guy. And they're not. They're going, what an asshole. That's what they're saying. But we don't see it that way. We just sort of glorify, wow, I'm hanging in here with these stupid ideas when a weak guy would have caved in and followed some good advice a long time ago and straightened his whole life out. Oh, no, not us. not our arrogant pride. No, no, no. I'm not straightening out and asking for help and, chickening out. I'm either going to do it myself or fail. And, of course, if you're up against alcohol, you're going to fail because it's a power greater than all of us. That's what makes us alcoholics. So it's this marvelous thing of either go down the tubes or ask for help, and you're stuck there. How far down the tubes is down the tube, So the first step is saying we're going to have to give up totally surrender. So what do we mean when we say we're powerless over alcohol? Well, this is a very important thing, and I always like to probably emphasize it at every meeting, but especially here today where I know we have lots of new people. Most people think when we say, what do you mean when you're powerless over alcohol? This is what most people will say when they're new. They'll say, oh, that means that whenever you drink, you get all screwed up. That when you walk up and you take alcohol and you pour it in, all kinds of bad things happen. You never know what's going to happen. And that's what being powerless over alcohol is. That once you pour alcohol into your system, it's Russian roulette. That's what it means. And we say, no, that's not what it means. What I just described is not a very big problem. What I just described is not a very big problem. If your only problem, now listen to this closely, if your only problem is whenever you drink, you get all screwed up, then you don't have a very big problem. Because you are exactly the same as someone who has discovered their body is all getting covered with rashes, and they lose their breath, and they don't know what it is, and they go to the doctor, and he says, oh, I've done some tests, and you are allergic to lobsters. And so whenever you're out eating seafood, if you eat lobster, you're going to have this happen to you. So now we know exactly what this person's problem is. Whenever they eat lobsters, they get all screwed up. They don't need to go to meetings with other lobster eaters and say to one another, how did you not eat lobster at that seafood place last night? Oh, it was awful. They brought some claws around and waved them in front of my face, and I carried these claw crackers around in my pocket just in case, and I got a bib ready, and there's none of that. You just find out that you're allergic to this kind of seafood, and all by yourself, for the rest of your life, you just don't eat it. People go, want some lobster? No. That's the end of the problem. So do you see the difference between that and the drinking problem? If we said, hey, we found out what your problem is, it's alcohol. Just don't drink anymore. Are you as happy as the person who was told, don't eat lobster anymore? Not quite. Not quite. Because there's really a much bigger problem, isn't there? You know what happens if you don't drink alcohol for the rest of your life? You're going to be sober for the rest of your life. All the time. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, you will be sober. Remember that? I forget that comedian used to drink a lot, and he said, when I get out of bed in the morning, when the guy who doesn't drink and I get out of bed in the morning, that's as good as he's going to feel all day long. You know what I mean? And that's how I thought about being sober. When somebody said, you're going to be sober all the time, I suddenly blurted out, well, wait a minute. That's my problem. Every time I'm sober, I don't like it. We really ought to call this Sober Anonymous. Why do you think I went into a bar? A bartender, could you come over here a minute? You're not going to believe this. I'm sober again. Have you got something that could fix this horrible situation that I'm in? Yes, have 3 of these. You will not be sober after... Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Ah, there I am. Thank God. Relief from sobriety one more time. So we had a different problem. Us alcoholics have a problem that alcohol fixes. Everybody focuses in on the problems that alcohol caused. And that doesn't help you understand alcoholism at all. I mean, if you could get a non-alcoholic, put a funnel in their mouth, hold them still long enough, and pour enough of that stuff in there, they would have a lot of the problems that we have. They would throw up a lot, and they would get liver damage, and they would have high blood pressure. They would have a lot of the things that we associate with alcoholics, but it wouldn't help us understand alcoholism at all. So when we say that we're powerless over alcohol, what we really mean is, yes, there's some bad things that happen whenever we drink, but the real problem is, even after alcohol, its damage, the illness, everything is explained to you in excruciating detail about you personally, you still go out and drink. That's the problem. There is no way that you, on your own, can avoid taking the first drink, which sets up all the rest of the problem. This is the real problem. It occurs when we're sober, and our brain is working 100%. And we walk in, we may not do it exactly this way, but we walk into a bar, and we say, I'm an alcoholic, Mr. Bartender. If I drink again, I'm going to lose my family. I'll probably be in jail again. And the doctor says a lot more health problems are going to happen to me. Can I have a beer? I'm going to get arrested again. Probably have to go through make that 2 beers. And go through DWI. Thank you. And it's like we understand the problem, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to do it anyway. It is insanity what that is involved there. That's what powerlessness over alcohol is. It is a situation where we have no defense against the first drink. We may last a month, we may last a year, but there's going to come a situation where we decide to take that drink and we'll start the whole rat race all over again. And if you haven't had it in your own life, you can talk to the people in here who've gone out and slipped and slide and let them explain to you what it's like after some little period of sobriety to go pick up a drink, just one. And then, bam, it's off to the races and the beating and all of that is just horrible. And this progression that alcohol takes us on, this downward slide, is devastating. If you think you've had trouble, if you've just gotten here and you think you've had trouble from drinking, that's just the beginning if you don't stick around here. What's left is just 5 times worse. It just gets worse and worse. And there is no way that you can learn anything that will help you not take a drink. If there's anything you pick up here this morning, is this is a spiritual program. We don't learn anything. We surrender into it. We say, I am powerless. When you say you're powerless, you shut off your intellect, because your intellect keeps wanting to figure out your alcoholism. Even as I'm talking right now, part of your brain is saying, yes, but maybe I can figure it out. Maybe up in Canada they will develop some new powder that alcoholic rats are taking, and they seem to be improving. And you find yourself in a health food store getting some powdered carrots. Maybe because your brain doesn't want to accept that there isn't some way you can drink again. It just doesn't want to do that. So we have to totally surrender and get involved in this program so that our brain doesn't keep taking over. And that's what surrender is in this first step. Admitting that we're powerless over alcohol and that our lives became totally unmanageable as a result. That we really weren't in charge. A lot of people are reluctant to turn their lives over to AA, to their sponsor, to their higher power, whatever we talk about in this spiritual program. And you're going to find that that's our second paradox, that if you want to be totally independent, the way you do it is to become totally dependent on a higher power. Then you can be independent. Because we may think that you are free, you may think you're independent, but you have no control over your life at all as an alcoholic or as an immature, sober alcoholic, because your emotions are totally in charge of you. You get up in the morning and you say, well, I think I'll go out on a job interview because you need a job. And fear says, don't leave the house. So you don't leave the house. You see what I'm saying? And something else, you get an idea, you're free now, go do anything you want, you're free, you're not drinking, and you have the idea, and then some other emotion, maybe jealousy, says, no, don't go make the amends, don't be nice to her, don't do this. And so your emotions are just jerking you all over the place, and what the program, by becoming dependent on the program and a higher power, you are given the power to put all those emotions in place so that you are now free to make your own decisions at last. And so that's the second paradox. The first one that we're talking about is in the first step. How do you beat alcohol? How do you beat it? And here's the paradox. You beat it by surrendering. You see, it's just the opposite. How do you win anything? By giving up. That's exactly what happens here. It's like a person that's drowning. Sometimes they're struggling so hard, the lifeguard has to knock them out in order to save them, in order to save their lives. And in order to save an alcoholic's life, they have to totally give up. They must abandon the old way of living and stop struggling against this new plan, or you won't make it. And that's why we have sponsors and meetings to just keep going, wrong. I mean, I can't remember my sponsor, how many times he'd just come right up in my face and just go, wrong, wrong again. And I didn't want to hear that, but all I knew was my old way of living. And so when they'd say, well, what do you think about that? I think we ought to punch them. Wrong, wrong. And so that's what happens in here, is that we get people who are willing, and what we basically do, if you're new, and we're at the end of the time, we'll stop in a couple of minutes. What we basically do, whether we realize it or not, we give other people in AA permission to interfere in our lives, to come over and talk to us at a level that you don't normally do. In other words, I walk into a meeting, and if I'm not doing too well, people walk over and go, what's the matter? You know what I mean? And I go, nothing. Don't tell me nothing. What's the matter? They have my permission to go beyond that normal social thing where you don't cross that line and go right in there and go, what is it, what is it, what is it? Force it out of me, and then we help, and then they get me back on the path. And so we do that to each other, and we make sure. We don't see somebody for a while. We call them up. Normally you wouldn't do that. You say, well, you can't stick your nose in their business. We've got to stick our nose in each other's business. I mean, that's what we do to each other when we come here, is give, everybody has permission to stick their nose in my business. See me not looking good, come up and ask me, what's going on? Because that is concern. And so this is why this succeeds in here, is because of that. And that's all part of this surrender. So if you're new, think about this step and really work on it. You must take this 100%. If there's any must in the program, I think it's around this first step. You just have to abandon any thoughts that there's some way that you can manage being an alcoholic and not surrender into this spiritual path. Because I'm sure it doesn't take people long. They look ahead, and all of a sudden steps 2 and 3 and 4, 11, and so on down, you start seeing God. And you go, well, I don't want anything with this God or higher power stuff, so I'm not out of here. I'm not going to really do this seriously. Well, let's save that for when we get to those steps. But we understand that resistance. So if you're new, start the new year out by just picking up a handkerchief, you know what I mean? And just go, this is it. I totally give up, but this is what you're in charge of. You don't give up everything. This is your job. Totally give up. Just follow what the damn sponsors in the meeting tell you to do. Go to this meeting, go to that, yeah. And then your job is evaluate the results. Compare the results of this new stupid plan, which you know can't work, with the way your life was going. That'll be your job over the rest of your sobriety. And we do that at meetings where we stand up and we tell our story. And we just go, let me give you an evaluation of what it's been like to follow this stupid plan for 29 years. Fantastic. You see what I'm saying? And you hear our evaluation of this plan. So if you're new, give it up. Totally give it up, and then report to us how well it's going. We got a great way to wrap this thing up with the Lord's Prayer for anybody who would care to join in.
I always like to refer to Sandy Beach for an overall view of the steps. He had 12, like he said, and I don't know if I'm gonna bring them all up. We'll see where it goes. But there's a good understanding of step 1, and like he says, you have to take that step 100% if you hope to recover. I want to jump right into Joe and Charlie with no further ado. I buttered you up with 2 songs before the break, and now I'm asking you to bash through to the end of the hour. And the only carrot I have to offer is there's a 3rd song at the end and a couple of announcements. A new site and where to find it, where we can have a conversation after the show's over. The meeting after the meeting, I guess. Thanks, and here's Joe and Charlie.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Joe, and I'm an alcoholic. And it's truly by God's grace and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that I found in a book called Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm sober today, and for that I'm very, very thankful. Charlie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Charlie Parmlett. I'm a very grateful recovering alcoholic.
Hi, Charlie.
Because I'm a member of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, and by the grace of the power that I found in the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I haven't found necessary to take a drink for 10,516 days today, 1 day at a time, and for this I'm grateful. Great to be here. Joe leaned over a while ago and he said, Charlie, this is one of the finest looking bunches of sick people we've seen in a long time. Isn't it great? We always like to say as we start one of these things that we do not consider ourselves to be the gurus of the Big Book Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't consider ourselves to be the experts on anything at all. We're just 2 old drunks, met together several years ago, found we had a mutual interest in the Big Book. We've studied it together for quite some time. Hopefully, we've learned a few things about it. And those few things we've learned about it, we just love to be able to share them with other people. We do not attempt to speak for AA as a whole, and you are most certainly free to agree or disagree with anything that we say throughout the entire weekend as you see fit. In fact, if you hear us saying things that can't be reconciled with what's in the Big Book Alcoholics Anonymous, we suggest you just don't pay any attention to those things. And we'll do our best to keep most of our conversation centered on the book itself. If we're going to study the Big Book Alcoholics Anonymous, which of course that's what we're here for this weekend, I think it would be well if we would go back and look at just a little bit of the history behind the book, be able to see what happened to some of the first people that put this thing together. And by looking at that history, then it's going to make it a lot easier to understand the book itself as we go through that. And what we like to do to look at some of the history is go to the forward to the 2nd edition, Roman numeral 15, and we'll start with the last paragraph on that page. So everybody that's got your books, if you're ready, Roman numeral 15, and the last paragraph on that page. Joe?
One of the things that's helped me over the years in studying Bill's writings, and he does this in most all of his writings. So if you kind of follow along with what he does, and you help you understand some of his writings. For instance, he'll always tell us what the problem is. Then he'll just tell us a solution to that problem. And then he'll give us a practical program of action to implement the solution that he just described. He does that in most all cases in his writing. So that kind of helped me in understanding how Bill writes. So on the bottom of the page, on Roman numeral page 15, he said the spark that was to flare in the first AA group was struck in Akron, Ohio in June 1935 during a talk between a New York stockbroker and an Akron physician.
Now we know that New York stockbroker to be this fellow named Bill Wilson. I think we're treating Bill pretty good when we call him a New York stockbroker. He really wasn't. He was a New York City stock speculator. He made his living out of selling fast, talking to slow-thinking people. I don't want to take anything away from Bill because he's a great man. But I think we all need to realize that he's a real alcoholic, just like all the rest of us. And understanding that, it'll make it easier to understand the book. Because after all, Bill is the primary author of the book. The Akron physician is this fellow named Dr. Bob Smith.
Now, 6 months earlier, the broker had been relieved of his drink obsession by a sudden spiritual experience following a meeting with an alcoholic friend who'd been in contact with the Oxford groups of that day.
A little later on, we're going to get into Bill's story, and we're going to see in Bill's story where he had what he always called a vital spiritual experience in the Towns Hospital in December of 1934. But prior to him having that spiritual experience, certain things had to take place in Bill's life. And one of the things was that this meeting with the alcoholic friend took place in the latter part of November 1934. And this was a fellow named Ebby Thatcher. And Ebby Thatcher came with Bill and sat down with Bill in Bill's kitchen. And he gave Bill what turned out to be two vital pieces of information. He said, Bill, people like you and I who have become absolutely powerless over alcohol, if we're going to recover from that condition, we're going to have the aid of a power greater than human power. He said the doctors and the ministers and the psychiatrists have tried to help people like us, but the human power doesn't seem to be able to do the job. And he said we'll have the aid of a power greater than human power. And he said, I've been attending meetings with a group of people called the Oxford Groupers. And they told me if I could have a spiritual experience, that during that spiritual experience I would be able to find that power and I would be able to recover from alcoholism. He said also they have given me a practical program of action. And they guaranteed me if I would follow that program of action, I would have the spiritual experience, I would find the power, and I would be able to recover from alcoholism. And he said, look at me, Bill. It's been 2 months since I've had a drink. Now, Bill knew about Ebby Thatcher, and he knew how Ebby drank. In fact, Bill had always said, if I ever get as bad as Ebby Thatcher, I'm going to quit drinking. And here's Ebby sitting in Bill's kitchen, and Bill is about 2/3 drunk, and Ebby's been sober for 2 months. This made a great impression on Bill when he told him of the solution, the vital spiritual experience, and he told him of the practical program of action necessary to have that spiritual experience. But that isn't everything Bill had to know. Let's go a little further.
He said he had also been greatly helped by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, a New York specialist in alcoholism, who is now counted no less than a medical saint by AA members, and whose story of the early days of our society appears in the next pages. And from this doctor, the broker learned the grave nature of alcoholism. Again, as we get into Bill's story, we'll be able to see how as far back as the summer of 1933, Bill was placed in the Towns Hospital for withdrawal from alcohol by Dr. Silkworth. And after he had been in there a few days and his mind kind of cleared up, Dr. Silkworth sat down with Bill and began to explain to him his ideas about this thing concerning alcoholism. And he said, Bill, I do not believe that alcoholism is a matter of willpower. I do not believe it's a matter of moral character. And I don't think sin's got anything to do with it. He said, I believe people like you are suffering from an illness. And he said, it seems to be a very peculiar illness. It's a twofold illness. An illness of the body as well as an illness of the mind. And he said, I think what has happened to people like you is you have become absolutely physically allergic to alcohol. And it seemed to me as though any time you put any alcohol whatsoever into your system, it develops an actual physical craving, which makes it virtually impossible for you to stop drinking after you have once started. And he said, because of that allergy, which produces that physical craving, you'll never be able to safely drink alcohol again. And he said, you also have developed what we refer to as an obsession of the mind. And he said, an obsession of the mind is an idea that overcomes all other ideas to the contrary. And he said, it really doesn't make any difference how badly you want to stop drinking. From time to time, your obsession of the mind to drink will be so strong that it will overcome any ideas not to drink, and your mind will actually lead you to believing it's okay to take a drink. And he said, then you'll take that drink, and then you'll trigger that allergy, and you'll be unable to stop. He said, you can't safely drink because of your body. You can't stay sober because of your mind.
Therefore, you've become absolutely powerless over alcohol. Now, Bill knew that in the summer of 1933, but knowing the problem didn't solve it, because if shortly after that his mind told him it was okay to drink. And he took a drink and triggered the allergy and drank for another year. In the summer of 1934, he was placed back in the hospital again to be withdrawn from alcohol by Dr. Silkworth. And this time Dr. Silkworth pronounced him incurable and told Bill's wife, Lois, that this guy is either going to die from DTs or he's going to become completely insane from a wet brain, and you're going to have to lock him up or hire a bodyguard if you expect him to live. And Bill overheard that, and he said this time fear sobered him for a bit. But then on Armistice Day, 1934, his mind told him it was okay to drink. And he took a drink and triggered the allergy and couldn't stop drinking. It's only after Ebby came to see him and gave him a solution to that problem and gave him a program of action that Bill was able to recover. So basically, he had to know three things. He had to know the problem. He got that from Dr. Silkworth. He had to know the solution and the program of action. That came to him from Ebby. And then Bill was able to have his spiritual experience and recover from alcoholism.
And Ebby began to take Bill to these Oxford Group meetings after that. And he says, though he could not accept all the tenets of the Oxford Group, he was convinced of the need of moral inventory, confession of personality defects, restitution of those harmed, helpfulness to others, and the necessity of belief in and dependence upon God, which were the tenets of the Oxford Group, which were later on expanded into the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, prior to his journey to Akron, the broker had worked hard with many alcoholics on the theory that only an alcoholic could help an alcoholic, but he succeeded only in keeping sober himself. After Bill got out of the hospital that last time, he began to try to help other people. He began to go out and seine them up out of the gutters and take them to these Oxford Group meetings. He began to go into the bars and dragging them off a bar stool and taking them to the Oxford Group meetings. Most of them didn't want to go, but he was taking them anyhow. He's trying to sober up the world. He had lots of enthusiasm. But after a few months of trying to do this, why, nobody was staying sober but Bill. And he went to Lois and he said, Lois, I'm trying to help these people, these alcoholics, stay sober. Nobody seems to want to stay sober. And he said, well, she said, why don't you go talk to Dr. Silkworth and see what he has to say? So he went over to talk to Dr. Silkworth and told him the same story. And Dr. Silkworth said, yes, I've heard some of the shenanigans you're pulling out there on the streets. He said, you know, Bill, you're staying sober, so obviously trying to help other people is helping you stay sober. And he said, you're talking to those drunks about that great spiritual experience that you had, and the drunk just won't accept that. He said, why don't you do for them what I did for you? Why don't you talk to them about the illness of alcoholism? Talk to them about the physical allergy and the obsession of the mind. Show them through your experience how that worked for you. And if they will accept that, then maybe you can talk to them about spiritual matters.
He said, Bill, every alcoholic I know has two questions. Number one, why can't I drink like I used to without getting drunk all the time? And number two, why can't I quit drinking now that I want to? And he said, if you will explain to them the exact nature of the illness, tell them about the physical allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind, you'll get their attention. And he said, then after you get their attention, you can talk to them about spirituality. But tell them what the problem is first. Our book said the broker had gone to Akron on a business venture which had collapsed, leaving him greatly in fear that he might start drinking again. He suddenly realized that in order to save himself, he must carry his message to another alcoholic. And that alcoholic turned out to be the Akron physician. We all know the story of Bill going to Akron. He and some other guys had put a business deal together. They're going to take over one of the companies there in Akron just through a proxy fight. And while there, the whole thing blew up in their face. And his friends all deserted him and left him there in Akron, standing in the lobby of the Mayflower Hotel, low, sad, and depressed, counting the money in his pocket, realized he didn't even have enough money to pay his hotel bill. He happened to look through a door off the lobby into the bar. And I would assume probably the lights were low in the bar. The music was probably playing in the bar. The laughter was great and the smoke was thick. And Bill's mind said, I believe I'll go in there and be with people of my kind, and I'll feel better. And as he started through the door, his mind began to think about taking a drink. And Bill suddenly realized that if he went in that bar, he was going to end up drunk. But he remembered how back in New York City, every time he'd tried to help another alcoholic, even though he had failed with them, every time he had tried, he himself had felt better. So he said to himself, what I better do is find me a drunk here in Akron to talk to. Made a few phone calls, came in contact with a lady named Henrietta Seiberly. And Henrietta said, yeah, I know a guy that you can talk to. Said, let me call him and see if I can't set up a meeting for you. So she calls Dr. Bob's house and got hold of Ann Smith, Bob's wife, and said, there's a fellow here from New York City that says he may have a possible means that Dr. Bob could recover from alcoholism. Can you bring Dr. Bob over for a visit? And Ann said, well, I'd like to. But she said, you know, this is the day before Mother's Day, and he brought me home a potted plant, and it's sitting on the table, and he's potted underneath the table. She said, let me wait until the morning and see if I can get him to come over. So, of course, the next morning, as soon as Dr. Bob woke up, she set in on him to go over to Henrietta's and see this guy and talk to this guy from New York City. Now, you know Dr. Bob didn't feel very good the next morning. Hung over and felt bad, and he said, I'm not going. And Ann kept after him and kept after him and kept after him, and finally, Dr. Bob said, I'll go over there and give that guy 15 minutes of my time, and then I'm coming back home. So Ann took him over there, and Bill and Bob went into a room by themselves, and they stayed in that room for literally hours. And Dr. Bob came out of that room, and he said, this is the first man I've ever met that knows what he's talking about when he talks about alcoholism. Let's see what happened to him.
He said the physician had repeatedly tried spiritual means to resolve his alcoholic dilemma, but it failed.
Bill was surprised to find out Dr. Bob was already in the Oxford groups. He knew more about the solution, the spiritual experience, and the program of action that Bill knew. But he had never been able to apply it to the depth necessary to recover, because he didn't know what was wrong with him. You see, he thought it was willpower. He thought it was moral character. He thought it was sin. Why would he not? That's what everybody had told him up until that time. And what really interested him was the message that Bill had to carry regarding the problem, not the solution, not the program of action, but what alcoholism really consists of.
He said, but when the broker gave him Dr. Silkworth's description of alcoholism and his hopelessness, the physician began to pursue the spiritual remedy with a malady for his malady with a willingness he had never before been able to muster. He sobered never to drink again up to the moment of his death in 1950. You know, Bill went in there, and this time, for the first time, he began to talk to Dr. Bob about the allergy to alcoholism. He told him that every time he would go down by the bar and had every intention to have a drink or two, he would drink more than he intended to, and he'd drink more that night or the next day, and he'd be off and running again. And he said this Dr. Silkworth had told him that was a physical allergy that caused him to want to crave more drinks after he took a drink. And Dr. Bob said, well, yes, I drink just like that. You know, you really know what you're talking about. That's the way I drink, too. I would want to have 1 or 2 drinks, and the next thing I know is I drank 3, 4, 5, 10, or 15, or 20 and didn't know how I got started. He said, you call that a physical allergy? He said, that's right. And he said, another thing, he said, when I'm not drinking, when I'm sober, I have these thoughts that I want to drink all the time. It's always on my mind. And Dr. Silkworth said that's the obsession of the mind, that we're obsessed with the idea to drink. And Dr. Bob said, well, I have those same kind of thoughts. You really know what you're talking about. So they reached a rapport through the illness of alcoholism and explained it in great detail. And Dr. Bob said, that's me. That's just the way I drink. You really know what you're talking about. So they had some identification going.
You know, this is the first time that Bill had tried this. Everybody back in New York City, he had always talked to them about the solution, the great spiritual experience, the big white flash he had had in the town's hospital. But he sat down with Dr. Bob. He didn't talk to Dr. Bob at all about Dr. Bob's drinking either. I'm sure that's what Dr. Bob expected to hear. Everybody else had talked to him about his drinking. But Bill said, let me tell you about my drinking. And through the sharing of his story, talking about his own allergy, Dr. Bob could see himself immediately in it. through the sharing of his own story, talking about his obsession of the mind, Dr. Bob could see himself immediately in it, and he could see where he had become absolutely powerless over alcohol. And for the first time, he was completely defeated when it comes to alcohol. Then he began to apply the little program of action.
Thanks everybody for their help on this. I'd like to thank Kate, my co-host, and all the archive speakers. I'd like to thank the technical staff. Oh wait, that's me. Join us anytime on Facebook at the Big Book Radio community page. It says Big Book Radio Community. Conversations on 24/7. In the AA we have a meeting after the meeting, and we all know that the sun never sets on Big Book Radio. Thanks for coming, and tune in next time for episode 4. And last but not least, here's credit to the builders for Paperback Bible. Big Book Radio.